This case involves ladies' intimate apparel, often things that were not spoken about in the early days of Sydney. However, we're going to show a contrast, and one of the contrasts being that now there are even advertisements for some of these things on television and more. This shows a pair of pink pajamas that were made from cotton crepe around 1920. It was done by machine, and I want you to notice that there is fine lace around the collar area and that there is hand embroidery done on this top. The bottoms have lovely lace around the leg openings, and it shows that there was a lot of care taken, even though this was something that most people would not ever see other than the person wearing it. Next to it is a sleep cap from about the same time in history. It was made by Minnie Webb and put on your hair to keep you warm as well as preserve your hairstyle. Next to that is a collection of plastic and metal hairpins that will also belong to a local named Carrie Cruzy Hegley, and they are in contrast to the small hairpins that we don't even want to see and don't see often. Here you see a pair of ladies' bloomers that are split in the crotch area. They're held up by a string, so you could adjust it during the course of the day around the waist, and that there are longer legs with beautiful lace at the bottom of each, and sometimes those showed out from the bottoms of corsets because of their length, and that just made it look a little fancier. Next to that, we have a pair of ladies' cotton stockings. They're made from 100% mercerized cotton, and they have the toes and the heels pre-formed on them. In the bottom corner is a current style of ladies' nightgown, and you can see that there is a vast difference between that and what we saw earlier, the homemade pajamas. This is a brightly patterned and what would be thought of in those days a very daring neckline, and it showed the entire arm, which in the early days of our history that would not have been allowed. Next to that is a nursing nightdress, and that has a very ornate and lacy top, but you can see that it has the opening or flap for the breastfeeding infants. And this is from the late 1800s. At the bottom of the display, you can see sachet bags. Lots of women had those in their drawers where they put their undergarments to keep them smelling fresher. In those days, people did not launder their clothing as often, and sometimes they didn't smell very fresh, so the sachets were their way of freshening up their clothing. Next to that is a Pond's cold cream jar from the 1940s. Every lady had a jar of Pond's cold cream on their dressing table. Every woman wanted a beautiful complexion to go with their lovely undergarments. On the bottom, you'll see the 1914 modern bra invention. It was invented by a woman who was a publisher and a peace activist. She thought it was important to have modesty, and she did this by sewing together a couple of handkerchiefs with a ribbon. She eventually sold it to the Warner Brothers corset company, which, you know, today the Warner name is still important in ladies' undergarments. Next to that is a lady's camisole, and you can see that's very ornate with the lace and crocheting, and that's from the late 1800s. Behind that is the modern day bra, which you can see accentuates more of the lady's curves rather than just covers it up. Before you is a wool bathing suit that women wore for many years. You can imagine how heavy that would have been if you got it wet. So those were really unpleasant things to wear. Next to that is a lady's slip, something that most of us grew up wearing, but now young ladies have no idea what a slip is. This is a lady's corset from the 1940s. You can see that it looks brand new. It's never been worn. It's a little different than the ones maybe you had seen in magazines or in pictures from the past, but a real lady did not go without her corset or her girdle later on in history. The strings were in the back. Those weren't tied till the end, and they were adjustable during the course of a day, but most ladies had to have somebody who helped them tighten those strings. Before those strings could be tightened, however, the garters had to be put on and the stockings as well. Fortunately, these went by the wayside, and ladies later had long-line girdles. Please come down and see the link between NASA and ladies' undergarments.